used to believe that my body was my enemy. It didn't start out that way. When I was a child and I used to go hiking with my parents in the mountains, and I would jump from rock to rock, totally free in my body. My mother called me a mountain goat. And I was so happy. When I switched from a small private Montessori school where I could do what I pleased into a large public school, everything changed. I grew up in white Seattle, and my little Latina body caused guys to walk down the hallway and slap me in the ass. And at that point, my attitude toward my body started to change. The big betrayal was one day during PE, we were having physical fitness tests. And I'd never thought about my strength before, but we were climbing a rope in a huge cavernous gymnasium. And light was streaming through, and this big rope was hanging from the rafters. And the boys climbed up the rope like monkeys. And then the girls got a chance to go. And the girls couldn't climb quite as well, but they made it about halfway through. I thought it looked like it might be fun, and so I went up to the rope. I sat on the big knot, and I grabbed up, and I tried to pull, and I didn't move an inch. People started snickering. And the gym teacher yelled, "Come on, you can do it. What's wrong with you?" And I continued to try to pull, and I could not. The kids burst out into laughter, and that was the laughter that followed me all through my public school years. Later that same year, I was 11 years old. I went to visit my uncle and his new wife to celebrate their marriage. My uncle was a wild flamenco musician, and he lived on a farm with a lot of other wild musicians, and we were going to get dressed up to go out to dinner. And my aunt found me a beautiful Renaissance dress to wear to the dinner. And it was a lovely velvet dress that was very low cut. And as I stood in her bedroom looking into the mirror, for the first time, I saw myself as a woman. And I was amazed. We went to dinner at a dark-paneled restaurant, and all up and down the table were my uncle's friends. And there was one man who didn't eat his dinner because his eyes were too busy devouring me. At first, I was pleased at the attention. I was surprised, and I looked down and realized that this woman's body that he was devouring was mine. I became uncomfortable, and then I felt violated. That feeling of violation was magnified 2 years later when men more than twice my age took advantage of a 13-year-old girl. And so my perspective on my body changed. It was something that attracted attention that I didn't want. And so I began to eat, partly for comfort, but then when I realized that the layers of fat protected me from that devouring, and also protected me from feeling, that became my comfort. Later on in my teenagerhood, I found that those uncomfortable feelings in my body could also be helped by drugs and alcohol, and I was quite a wild teenager. I settled down, and my refuge became the not feeling and my mind. I was always very smart, and my intellect wasn't something that anyone could take away or could challenge. And so that's what I focused on, because my mind was a safe place, and my body was not. In 2004, I was running a successful business. I had 3 beautiful children, a beautiful house, and I was deeply, deeply unhappy. I had contracted hepatitis C as a result of my youthful indiscretions, and I'd been carrying it for 20 years. And I decided to undergo interferon treatment, which is a treatment that people who have done chemotherapy and interferon say that chemotherapy is much easier, that interferon is the worst. I spent an entire year in bed. Now, this was a person, I had started businesses, I had been a leader in the community, and I had gone. My mind had run me for so many years that lying in bed was the strangest sensation because I had to be alone with myself. And I had to feel feelings. And being on interferon is like having the worst flu of your entire life for an entire year. I couldn't get out of bed except for about 10 minutes a day to pick up my kids at school. So at the end of that process, I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what it was. And so when I got up from that bed, I was 50 pounds overweight, and I was so weak that I could not get out of a chair without using my hands. I would go into the kitchen and try to pick up a pot and not be able to hold it except with two hands. And so I decided to get into shape. It was a simple thing that I could do. I'm a ravenous researcher, and so I researched all of the ways that I could do that. And weightlifting became the thing that I did. I loved the feeling of power, and I loved the feeling that I got. And my body started to change in a very profound way. Originally, I started doing this because I wanted to feel better. I just wanted to get healthy. I wanted to be able to take care of my children and not be the mom sitting on the beach towel while the children played in the surf. But something shifted in a very profound way, and I saw my body in a very, very different way. Ultimately, I became a trainer, which was the opposite of what I had always been. And one day, my entire perspective shifted because I knew I was in shape. I knew I could keep up. But I was taking a yoga class, and at the end, we were sitting in a cross-legged position in a darkened room. There were probably 30 or 40 people in the room. And I always sat in the front because I have a little ADD and I have to be able to pay attention. And we closed our eyes in meditation, which I never would have been able to do before. When I opened my eyes, I looked in the mirror, and for a moment I was terrified because I couldn't see myself. I was not in that room. And slowly my eyes came into focus, and I saw the fit woman sitting in front of me was me. And it was an incredible experience. I did not recognize myself. After that, I began to believe that my body was my friend. I remember, I think it was Thomas Aquinas said that he called his body brother donkey. And I took care of my body as a friend, as my donkey. And that was a really useful metaphor for me at that time. But in the last few years, as I have done spiritual work, I realized that the fragmented parts of myself, my mind, my spirit, my soul, had always existed in these separate compartments. I realized that the feelings that I had in my body and the pain that I felt, which I was beginning to feel more because I was coming into my body, these feelings were friends, and these feelings were lessons for me. At that time, I decided that the Tylenol and ibuprofen and codeine and Vicodin and drugs and the occasional joint were interfering with my spiritual growth. And so I decided to stop all of that. And over the last few years, what I have found is that my body is my doorway to my true self. These feelings, these painful feelings that I had over the years that I wanted to blot out in one way or another, or cover up, or insulate myself from, are actually the doorway to my true self. And today, My body's not my friend. It is me. I used to believe that my body was my enemy. And now I understand that my body is me. And now I stand before you whole for the first time. Thank you.